Welcome to Off the Post, powered by Lights on Electric and Cover All Exteriors. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
It's snowing in Philly, and I'm assuming it's snowing down your way too, Russ.
It stopped already.
Did it stop? It's hopefully
Yeah.
gonna stop in a few minutes here.
It's not much. And we have Michael
Mike's
Gellar.
like, who cares?
Mike, how are you?
It's a day ending in Y.
Oh, God.
Great.
So, in which Mike says, why?
Yeah, I'm not alone in my particular locale.
We'll break down the Flyers Ranger game in a minute, but I'm going to go to the after the game first because it's the bigger existential question. So, I was in the locker room for a little bit. I wanted to kind of get the temperature of both the Rangers locker room and the Flyers locker room because they're really two different teams the way they're viewing the season. And so with the Rangers, everybody knows there's a letter and it went out. It's the second time.
2.0, as they're referring to it in New York, right? 2.0.
Yeah, second time it's happened. So who better to talk to than Mika Zibanejad, who's actually been there for 2 letters. First Ranger in the history to do that. And he talked about that.
He was setting quite a few records yesterday.
Yes.
2 letters, hat tricks, power play goals, all-time power play goals for the New York Rangers.
Preface
setting records yesterday, Mika.
Preface and prologue. There you go.
Yeah. So as a guy who's written some Ranger books, you hear about Zibanejad takes that in, set a record.
Yeah.
He's mildly proud about that, but it's coming at a bad time. He has to answer the questions about the letter, which I think is terrible for the players in a way, even though the players have not done a good job, but they still have to answer for it. Chris Drury doesn't have to answer for it. Sure. So he has to answer for the letter, which again, he does. And he says they really haven't had a lot of time to process it, but because he's lived through 2 of them, he kind of knows what it's like. And the interesting part was it really could have gone either way, he said. Like it could go, hey, we just defy it, and maybe that's why we played well, or maybe because there's just no pressure on, we played well. He doesn't know the answer. He's honest. But the thing that I got out of it most was, and he did hint towards this last season, he doesn't want to leave. He is not going to leave. Chris Drury will not be able to force him out. And I don't believe Mike Sullivan would stop playing him. I think Sullivan's pretty principled. And I don't think even if Drury told him to do that, I think they would have to have a big meeting of the mind. So I don't think Zibanejad's going anywhere.
And considering the messaging also from Sullivan as well, his belief that we could say it's it's defiant talk in the face of reality that the Rangers could fight for the playoffs. I do have to keep that a little bit back in the back of my head though, that there is potentially a dual purpose to this, that it pisses off the players to the point where they align themselves against management. They feel the ultimate sort of pressure that they could all be dealt off, and that existential idea that they as a group could be broken up could bring them together. And I do have to keep that in mind, although the realistic is more real. It's what the Rangers are.
The Panarin staying, though, isn't going to happen.
Panarin is not going to. No, Panarin's going to get dealt. I think not there's any question about that at this point, especially just from the long-term perspective for New York. But he's going to absolutely be and that's the intention for New York, is to get absolute maximize value now going into the Olympic break for the possibility of for another team. He could be an absolute difference maker here for a team, for one of the contending teams that were trying to win a cup.
It only depends on whether he is willing to go to more than one place. Then in a bidding war. If he says, like Brad Marchand, I'm going to the Florida Panthers, they're stuck. I
think that's what he's going to do. That's just my gut feeling. I don't have any.
There's been chatter about Minnesota because of Kaprizov and him having the same agent. There's been chatter about Washington and joining the Russian mafia there. Just kidding. It could be Florida, and Florida would have to put Barkov on season-ending LTIR,
which they might have to do anyhow.
They may have to do regardless, depending on where he's at. But I don't think he's reports are. I don't
And
think
the
it's that far
Rangers
away.
would eat a certain amount, and I'm pretty sure Samoskevich and some other prospect and first rounder probably from like 28 or 29, whenever the Panthers have one.
I mean, seriously, it just feels like with the Panthers, they are not quite dodgering it, but it sure as hell feels like it in some ways.
But that's the way I feel about that, and I think other guys will go like Carson Soucy and players like that. But
yeah,
but now we talk about the game. So one thing I did talk about before the game, and then I tweeted it, was I felt like the Rangers would start that game off mad as players, because you've now, the GM has basically said, you guys aren't good enough, now I'm breaking you up, and said it publicly. And we know how hockey players are, and they're prideful, right? And so my contention is that if Rick Tocchet sent that message to the players, and he may have, because he was a former player and he knows how the Rangers were going to be, and this was going to be different than the way they played recently, that message didn't get through.
Well, let's say this: Philly did come out pretty strong in the early part of that game. They
very early, didn't
early exactly. But the problem is that this is a team whose confidence is on a knife's edge, and a quick response goal definitely on the first shot that the Rangers get, certainly I think caused the team to lose if they had some energy early on after that first goal by Konechny, they were on a knife's edge. They were definitely on a knife's edge, and that goal obviously put them the other way. Now, again, it was again very in relatively quick order shortly after Philly, so that takes a little bit of the air out. The second goal is obviously, in this circumstance, the thing that I think that was an eminently stoppable shot.
The long distance shot by Zibanejad.
The long distance shot. That was an eminently stoppable shot for Alexei Kolosov. To miss that, it was a standard issue save. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, nobody's. I mean,
if you think yourself of an NHL goaltender, even in a backup role, you make that stop.
Perreault was net front, but he wasn't really in the way.
No, it wasn't enough. That was an absolute clean enough look that it was a standard issue stop.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is with Philadelphia is that much of their success this season, as it was 2 years ago when they were overachieving under John Tortorella's reign, is that it was propped up by well above average goaltending.
Right.
And they've gotten that from Dan Vladar. The minute you take Dan Vladar away, the structure seems to again in front of Sam Ersson.
The defense changes.
The defense changes, and the defense has been. And I pointed this out in my piece on Hockey Hot Stove for the New Flyer Focus. I zeroed in on Cam York. I thought again, if you're a top pair defenseman, I think the biggest, and beyond the goaltending being questionable, is that the veterans on this team have been making very poor decisions with the puck.
Yeah.
But I am very much concerned with that top D pair for the Flyers right now. That's supposed to be their number one pair in York and Sanheim. Sanheim up and down a little bit. York has been trending in the wrong direction.
He has.
And then York had a horrific, I think that 80 seconds was arguably the worst 80 seconds I think of his NHL career to date.
Nobody would argue that.
Russ said it when Toronto played Philadelphia, and that was like 10 days ago.
It was Thursday.
Yeah. And that Sanheim looked like he was basically starting to fold under the weight of playing as many minutes. And seeing the Flyers on this recent 5-game homestand with the Sabres, I mean, I noticed that right away.
I think they're running on fumes. I do. Yeah. I agree. I think the team as a group is tired and running on fumes. But I'll go back to what Tocchet said, is that when you're running on fumes, structure becomes extremely important.
Right.
But then when you have substandard goaltending behind you, only so much of that structure can hold after a while if you're giving up. And that was one of the biggest things that I've noticed as well with this team, is that, again, the box plus one fails, it's supposed to take away like half of the ice for the goaltenders to make their job easier. Well, now if that thing breaks down, the goaltenders are out on an island. And even in the game against Buffalo in this case, and I would say this as well, even against if it was, Vladar started yesterday, Mike. I don't think it mattered who was in net. The structure at this point now, they've gotten into some very, very bad tendencies now.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this as an expert on tanking, because I live in Buffalo, and Toronto did it successfully for about a year and a half, a decade ago. Okay, if you're the Rangers, you have to be able to eliminate what happened yesterday, and the only way you can do that is by killing this team. And by killing it, I mean trading Panarin, maybe trading Vincent Trocheck.
Well, that's what he's going to do.
Right. But the thing is, it's like, thankfully things are close enough that if you do that probably before the Olympic break or soon after the Olympic break, you can put yourself in a position to guarantee yourself a top 5 spot. And in this draft, Russ, I mean, we'll talk about the draft going forward, but this is a draft that you'd like to be in the top 5.
Absolutely. All they have to do is put Jonathan Quick in net most of the games, and it'll satisfy them.
Or Spencer Martin, or
Martin was actually okay. Martin played a pretty good game.
Circumstance too for the Rangers, knowing that when you don't have Igor Shesterkin to handle things for you behind there, your chances of competitiveness have gone down substantially.
Yeah. Right. Now, and am I somebody who as a fan of a particular team am pissed off that the team puts out a letter? No, because I mean, if this is the worst kept secret in the world, Shesterkin is out for long term. Adam Fox is on LTIR. Your stars are not playing well. If you're not tanking and you're not rebuilding or retooling, as they said in the letter, you're abrogating your responsibility as a management team. Now, and I'll say this on the show, like I said to Russ, Danny Briere should be preparing a letter. Because, I mean, and this is something I've been saying for a while. It's like you cannot serve two masters. You cannot say we're trying to make the playoffs and we're trying to rebuild. It's one or the other.
I don't think in this, again, when I look, they're keeping themselves in a kind of an open-ended situation here where Briere is not, in terms of them trying to make the playoffs, I think that is kind of like they're riding with what they kind of have at the moment. From a structural standpoint, and that again, things have kind of gone downhill for them. There's no question about that in this current skid. Much as you want to do the strip down and everything, and everybody wants to discuss, obviously, well, then why give Christian Dvorak a 5-year deal? The question is going to be, what exactly might you have gotten for Dvorak if your team starts to
that's a good question
anyway.
Yeah,
that was my question in that circumstance. And the fact of the matter is, even if they are going to go searching this offseason, I don't think there's going to be much obviously available in free agency.
I'll give you the answer.
That's one of the reasons why I don't. Beyond this, though, if you're Danny Briere, you're watching this and you're going, okay, so I took care of that. I took care of that piece of business just to kind of paper things with my center situation, at least for now. If this team starts to fall apart, I don't think there's going to be a letter per se. I don't think it's going to be necessary that there's a letter per se. It's about action in this circumstance.
Yeah, I agree.
It would have shocked me if they start falling out that the Flyers are go say, okay, we're going to go into sell mode.
And
it wouldn't surprise me at all.
And these two teams are in different spots because with the Flyers, I mean, I wasn't completely against the Dvorak signing because I thought they paid him a little too much, but the price of centers are extremely expensive.
Right.
So the
term is the concern on that.
Right. More than the term, but as we've seen in this league, term has a way of disappearing at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with the Flyers, their future is 2 years down the road. When Martone is there, when Luchenko is there, they want Zegras, who's in his mid-20s, and Dvorak is not overly old. They want a structure, Tippett and Brink and
Forster. Although not all those guys are, again, we can talk about that. They're not going to have all those guys necessarily. One or more of those guys are going to be probably moved if there comes a situation where Philadelphia, in the position that they are weakest at on the forward course.
Well, I'll tell you,
go ahead.
So with Dvorak, the reason they were able to get that contract is because he had the leverage because the team is desperate at center. You see what the whole situation is.
And again, they need that because again, you don't know where things are with Luchenko yet. He's still young. I keep telling people with Luchenko, keep losing their minds over Luchenko and the struggles that he's had.
No, but that's the other part of it, and I think the organization was hopeful he'd be in the lineup next year, and I think now they realize he's not.
And that exactly. And I think that's what predicated them doing the contract with Dvorak. And again, I do wonder in a year or two about Sean Couturier's, term here in Philadelphia, what that might be something else that comes up down the line here, because again, Sean, I think again, this is a team that has basically, for all ostensibly, three third line centers on this team.
Yeah.
In reality, at the pivot position, they've got good wings, but you don't have that. We've gone over this time and time again, and I think they're going to be in search mode here potentially. They may, if there's even a possibility of a young forward on another team that they think can become a center, a little bit more of a, again, the whole purpose of the Zegras trade initially was to see if they could experiment. I had someone ask me, "Hey, the Flyers are in trouble here. Why not just ride with Zegras at center?" And the fact of the matter is,
they know he's not a center.
He's not a center. I'm sorry. It's the reality of the situation. He wasn't junior, but at the NHL level, I think he's a really good winger, but he's not a center. He can't win draws. And he's not good enough defensively. And I don't know. I think he's a very highly intelligent offensive player. I don't know whether or not that translate along with responsibilities at center. So now and that's the other reason why Dvorak was signed to a 5-year deal, is because in reality, Trevor Zegras is not an option.
He's not a center.
So Philly is still once again out there,
right,
looking for maybe another younger forward out there that they think could become a center, that may profile better than Zegras.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a quick report on the All-American game that I was at in Michigan. I will say that Michigan weather, with the wind that they have, it's different than here. And so, like, when it was 9 degrees there and I was pumping gas, it was the coldest I was this year. Like, at any point.
You're near the lakes. You're not that far, and that lake,
it goes right through you.
Like you need to tell Mike that.
No, but it's just funny. Like, until you experience it, it's like it kind of goes right through you. But there was a team blue and a team white, like there always is. A couple guys I want to talk about. Jack Hextall, who I think is getting better and better. He's a good center. I think he's the second or third best center in the draft. I think he's probably a top 15 guy. He played on the line with Evan Jardine and Blake Zielinski. Now, Jardine is his teammate in Youngstown, and Zielinski played with Jardine at the World Junior A. So there was some familiarity, and so there was some good line play there. And Hextall, told me in an interview, and I posted that on NHL Draft Buzz, that when a lot of guys, and I noticed this in film and when I watched him play, when a lot of guys are going high these days, high corner, he goes low. And I'm like, why? I needed to find out why, because he's going against the grain with that. And he said, because my dad and my grandfather said it's a high percentage shot. They don't care about the rest. And you know what? They're right, because goalies are looking to cover high. They're not looking to cover low as much. And his dad apparently played some AHL hockey. So it's a very intelligent thing coming from a center. And the big thing that, the big takeaway again for any center that gets drafted now, you kind of have to be a shooting center more than a playmaking center these days. That this position's changing. And so he is a guy that can serve both purposes. And, he's a smart kid. So he did well. Blake Zielinski did very well. He didn't score, though. Zielinski, Hextall did have some points. But Zielinski looked good. I think he's probably second round. Maybe could sneak in the first, but I think he's probably mid-second and could go a little higher. He keeps developing. Like, I've watched him since he's 15, and he keeps adding new wrinkles. In this game, the best thing he did, and I put it in my article for Elite Prospects, is he face-washed a guy. Now, again, this is like an all-star game, remember. But there was a fight after the game ended, like when they were supposed to be celebrating, there was like almost a full-fledged fight. It almost happened. And so during the game, though, he face-washed a guy. And I was like, okay.
Are you telling me he's got a little JT Miller to him? Because
I'm saying
in the game yesterday, I think we saw JT Miller do at least one face wash and one right hook to someone's head.
Yes.
Shocking.
But I'm saying in this league, it's kind of necessary, So those guys stood out a little bit. And then there's to me, I'll say the curious case of Wyatt Cullen, Matt Cullen's kid. We all remember Matt Cullen as a player. It's not that long ago. And if you look at Matt, like, he shows up at these games and he's still in great shape and he's probably still fast. And his son is very fast too. So his son did have 3 points, couple goals, and he did win the MVP. And I looked at him as probably like a third rounder before this year started. I watched him last year, maybe even the year before. Now it looks like there may be a little more to him. I don't know if he's more than just offensive in his game, but the speed and the offense may be enough to get him to creep into the bottom of the first round. And so I'm going to keep an eye on that. So he's like that other guy. And I'll say this, there's a lot of guys with famous last names, and Parker Trottier probably has the most famous name going.
Gee, I wonder who his dad was.
Grandfather.
Well,
and grandfather. His grandfather.
How old I am, Russ.
Yes. I want to just correct Mike. It's his grandfather, Mike.
That's great.
And rightly so. He doesn't really talk about him. But I have noticed that his all-around game has gotten a lot better. His speed and his little details. Because look, with that last name, there's no offense that you could provide that would ever live up to that name, right? And I don't think he has that either. But other parts of his game are improving. So now I kind of look like, would he go into third, fourth round? Maybe. Where a year ago I was unsure. So, this game is, again, there were some really good 07s too. I mean, Sammy Nelson's probably the best of that group. And then the other really good, there's two other really good 07s. And I'll eventually write about them, but not to the degree that I write about draft guys this year. Jamie Glantz and Abe Barnett. And so those, again, so like for people that want to say, the program, it's not as good and all these things, the USHL is not as good because, I spoke to like an ASGM like before this season began and asked him about all the rejiggering of the leagues. And he said USHL is going to be fine. And I think he's right. I think they are sort of recalibrating. And I think you're going to see like more 07s in this game.
Yeah.
What it won't be 07s.
And the CHL.
And I mean 27s. I shouldn't say 07s.
And the CHL is probably going to do the same thing, Russ. The CHL is probably going to do the same thing because, the reality of these players going to college and potentially getting NIL money. Yeah. I mean, that's going to happen for the star players, but the sort of the players who are late developing or, they may stay in junior. They may go, they may, like a couple Leaf draft picks, they may go and play in junior until they're 20 and then go to college. And then they won't be coming out until they're 23 or 24.
I don't know if it's going to happen like that, but it could if they go back to the other leagues. But like I said, there's 2027 guys, not 07. That's me on a Sunday morning. But next year, like when there's 2028s, I think there'll be more of them. And then they won't stay in the USHL as long. Right. And I think that's their jam at this point is they're still going to get those really early guys. Now, there was a guy, Will Tomko, who's not even committed to a college, which nowadays, when you see that, that's odd. So he may be a guy that goes and plays in like the Dub or something and then goes to college after that. And then, like Mike says, comes out at 23, 24. And so, the paths have changed. So, that's it for that. Mike, as far as paths changing, has the Sabres path started to change?
I think so because, they went 3-1-1 on a 5-game homestand. That's, respectable based on the way that they were. But, this is a team that won 15 of 17 going into yesterday's game against the Wild. And, they were leading 4-3 in the third period. And they were playing a higher level player into a higher level team, in the Minnesota Wild, even though like there were like 4 or 5 players for the Wild who were out with they apparently they stayed in Minnesota. They were ill, but they still fielded a good enough team that it was Zuccarello and it was Hartman and it was Kaprizov and the star players were there. Well, Quinn Hughes comes down, blows an absolute blast past Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and then they go to overtime, and they had a 4-on-3 power play, and Philip Gustafson was directly responsible for the victory because on 2 opportunities with the long change in overtime on a power play, he quickly advanced the puck up the ice that prevented the Sabres penalty killers from changing. And Minnesota eventually scores the winning goal. But the whole thing, so the Sabres lost 2 games of the 5-game homestand, and you can't complain about what they're doing right now. 15 of 18. But after that stretch, which nobody saw coming and is the best stretch of any team not named Tampa Bay or Colorado in the NHL. They're 1 point up in the wild card race. They're going to cool down. They cannot maintain this pace for the remainder of the year. I just don't think they're good. They have a lot of talent. We know that they have a lot of talent. I just don't think that they're that talented to be dominant from now until the end of the season.
But what if they make a trade at the deadline?
Well, that's the $64,000 question here, because Yarmo, at his media availability in December, said we're not making trades for the now just to make the playoffs. Do I believe that? No, but
I wouldn't believe that.
Right. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's like, okay, what are you talking about here? I don't. They will do rentals. They want players with term, and then you're in the boat of making a hockey deal, which every general manager. Now the Sabres are different. They actually have young assets. They could make rental deals. They could make trades for players who have a year or two left. But they because they have trouble attracting free agents and trouble getting players to waive their no trade or no move clauses. So I mean, it's a delicate balance here. I mean, if all of a sudden the Columbus Blue Jackets decide they're going to open up the coffers and trade some players, I'm sure Yarmo would want to bring in. I don't think they're going to trade Boone Jenner, but if Boone Jenner was on the market, are you telling me that Yarmo wouldn't be moving up to the bar to try to get Boone Jenner or some of the players in Columbus that he drafted or developed?
Well, and maybe one of the trades he makes is trading Alex Tuch, who seems like he's not signing there, and gets a guy with an extra year of term that he could use still in this playoff run.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, because there was a piece in The Athletic that came out on Friday. David Pagnotta has been reporting about this a lot. Elliot and Pierre. There's been no reported progress on the Tuch talks, and they say, well, they're going to talk in late January. But at that point, it's getting almost to be too late, because there's a trade freeze from February 4th till after the Olympics. And then you have about 10 days between then and the deadline. I think they're going to wait till that 10 days. But if they're in a playoff spot, somebody made the point that, Yarmo didn't trade Panarin and didn't trade Bobrovsky when they were in Columbus. He let them at his own. I don't think Buffalo is in the same position as Columbus. Columbus had a legitimate chance of going deep in the playoffs at that point. This team, and he added Matt Duchene and I think Ryan Zingle at the deadline. This team, I don't think they can do that. I think it's a different scenario.
I forgot about Ryan Zingle. He was like overrated.
Yeah, but at that point he was still a useful third.
I know, but that year was like his year, wasn't it? Like
it was. He was he became the eye of the deadline at that year, and it was just like, okay, all right.
But to answer your question, Russ, I mean they've played more home games than road games. They've they're going on I think it's a 5-game road trip, and the road record has been better of late, but they're still not really good on the road. If they start to lose momentum, and at the Olympic break they're a few points out of a playoff spot, it puts Yarmo in a really weird position, because I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. If he stands pat and then Alex Tuch walks away from nothing, he cannot do that. You either need a definitive answer, and from the Sabres organization, you need to pony up and pay him close to what he wants, or you need to make a trade. And it's like, I think, if he's not signed on March the 5th, you need to trade him on March the 6th.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Trade him to Montreal. His brother's in the organization. Who knows? Anyhow, Mike, so now with the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're still a point out of the playoffs. And my feeling is this. They definitely have a good chance of making it. Right. But I don't think they should be wasting a lot of assets at the deadline, because if they don't make it, it's just going to put them further in the hole, which they're already in a hole for this draft and a few others.
They don't have a lot of assets, so they can't waste them.
But they do for other drafts, not for this one. But,
well, I mean,
what do you think they're going to do?
Well, I mean, this recent road trip. First of all, they had the second worst road record, and they still do in the NHL. They only the St. Louis Blues are worse.
Well, thank God for the Blues.
Yeah, thank God for the Blues. But hold your beer. The Toronto Maple Leafs have the worst record in the NHL when it comes to leading after 2 periods and getting a win.
That's not good.
No, their winning percentage is .667, and that's terrible. They've blown, and you've seen it during this road trip. They blew a lead in Colorado. You could be forgiven for that because Colorado was great, but they won that game in overtime. They blew the lead in Vegas, which was unforgivable because they were playing. They were gassed. They were playing with their head up their ass. I don't care. You're up 5.
And they were playing against Mitch Marner.
Right. No, you're up 5, but Russ, that was sort of ancillary. You're up 5-3 in the third period with, I think, 8 minutes to go, and you give up the tying goal with 7 seconds and you lose in overtime. It's in their position. They have no wiggle room right now. They have to win those games. And then yesterday they did the exact opposite. They came back from 3-1. They tied at 3-3 late in the third and then won on a Max Domi overtime goal. So, 3 of the 4 road games, they went to overtime and they got 5 of a possible 8 points. For a team that had the league's second worst road record, that's acceptable. But, and now they come home and they play a bunch of games at home, and they've been one of the best teams in the NHL at home. So, but to answer your question, I mean, Brad Treliving is not in a position okay, he can't be in on Rasmus Anderson. He doesn't have the assets, and and Calgary won't trade with. I don't care what anybody says. Craig Conroy and the ownership of the Calgary Flames would rather trade with Satan than trade with Brad Treliving. So I agree
with you. Yeah. I mean, Satan's pulled off some good deals in his day.
Yeah.
They'd rather make a trade with the Dodgers.
Oh, well, that is Satan.
Or worse.
Yeah, but
Freddie Peralta may go to the Dodgers now too.
Cody Bell. Well, they won't go after Cody Bellinger because he hit .210 for them. So they're
he's safe.
He's safe. Yeah, he's safe. But no, I short of I would say a depth move on the blue line, like a Luke Shen or somebody like that. Now, third time's a charm for Luke Shen. But short of that, I just don't think that they're not trading Cowan now. Cowan is really playing well for them. They're probably not trading Ben Danford because he's their best defensive prospect in the organization, and they don't have a first round pick until 2028. So
they'll let it ride.
Yeah, no, I think they're gonna let it ride. I think if he sees an opportunity, the one thing that they do have is cap space starting next year. So they'd have to play things around right now before the deadline, but they can move things around, so to speak. But I mean, if it's a question of somebody who has term left on his contract, they might be able to finagle things to get that player, and if they don't have to give up a ton of that's why the Dougie Hamilton stuff has come up, because Treliving traded for him when he was with Boston to Calgary, and they want a right shot defenseman, but there's only 2 problems. Dougie Hamilton is not the Dougie Hamilton he traded to 11 years ago, and he sucks defensively. And he has taken so many injuries. He's not the player even that started with New Jersey a couple years ago. So, I mean, I think he's going somewhere else. And I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this before the end of the show, but the Rasmus Anderson stuff, it sounds like it's imminent. It sounds like it's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Let's talk about it.
My read on the Anderson thing is that I think it's probably Boston, and these other teams are supposedly in it, that may be in it. They're just trying to extract something else out of Boston before they send him there. I think that's probably Calgary's best case scenario, is to send him out of conference and to a team like Boston in this.
Well,
Fraser Minton. It's going to be Fraser Minton.
Well, Fraser Minton has been talked about. But
he is always the hot guy to go, isn't he? He's always the hot guy to go.
No, but like Lowry getting a 2-goal game yesterday sort of helps grease the wheels. So I think it should happen today as a result. Minton would be an interesting one, Mike, for sure.
The high fives, by the way, on the bench. We all saw the thing where he's on the side where you all saw the video where his teammates as Anderson as they're coming off the ice from last night's game, they're all he's on the side and they're all high-fiving him, which basically tells me at this point a deal's going to happen.
They know.
Yes.
They know it's going to happen. It's just a matter
imminent.
of it's imminent. So
I mean, Russ, it would make a lot of sense because Mitten's a good prospect. He's a young kid. He's a smart player. He doesn't have a lot of ties to the Bruins because he just got there last March. He has value. He's a center. I mean,
he hasn't had a chance to get crushed in arbitration by Boston yet.
But the thing is, it's like, I mean, if it's not a Minton, okay, the Bruins give up a first round pick, fine. But if it's not a Minton, I don't know like who Boston has in terms of a top prospect.
Well, Fabian Lysell is still there.
Yeah, but he's been around for a while.
Well, but I mean, this is what happens. Either he goes now or he eventually comes up this year.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I have a feeling before we do our next show on Wednesday, that deal will I have a feeling that deal will be done.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure of it. So
it'll be done like an anchor bar wing. That's it. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.